everybody. Artistry and Finesse with you. Post game on Friday night, the Penguins lose to the Islanders 4-3 in Game 2. The series even at 1 apiece. Finesse, if there was a game that the Islanders were going to win, and we knew that they were going to come at us hard, it was tonight. But it's a lot less palatable when Fleury plays the way he did tonight.
Right. It's the worst kind of way to lose the game because it's everything you fear going that could have gone wrong was going wrong. And now you go forward into Game 3 with no confidence whatsoever in the goalie. Like, I'm just so exhausted with this garbage that he gives up. Like, how many playoff games do we have to lose because he scores a puck in his own net that bounces off the back of bounces off the boards behind the net? I mean, it's got to be like you can count this on two hands at least. Like I'm thinking, like a couple in the Montreal series, he did it both of the Detroit series all the time. Against Flyers, he probably did it 3 or 4 times last year, and then twice tonight. And plus another one that came from behind the net that their second goal, like he just lost track of the puck behind the net.
It's disgusting. And I just want to get this out of the way. You know, for all the Fleury defenders, we're not saying he's a bad goalie. We're not saying he wasn't outstanding in the first period because he was. We're not saying the defense was good or the Penguins were strong on the puck in the defensive zone because they were terrible. They gave up 42 shots tonight. But the bottom line is, if you're a franchise elite goaltender, you do not give up that goal in the third period of a playoff game. You just don't give it up.
You don't give up any of the second, third, or fourth goal that they scored.
But if you do, you make it right. If you give up a goal and you're tied in the third period, you make it right. You don't compound your mistakes of earlier in the game and single-handedly lose the game for you.
Right. He just has this
can't happen.
He just has a knack for giving up the most deflating, awful goals at the worst possible times. Like, give that goal up in the third period last night and lose your shutout. Don't give it up in the third period of this game. It's like it's just like I don't think it comes across that you look at the final score, you say, oh, he had all these saves and all this stuff. But, like, there's something to the fact of when you give up the goals and how you give up the goals that dramatically affects the way that your team plays. And I know the defense played like shit. You said it. Everybody knows it. Like, the Corsi gods are going to be laughing at the Penguins after this game. The Islanders at the puck almost the entire game. But you got to make a save. You got to make a routine save. You can't score the puck when they don't even get a shot on goal. Like, you don't have to get a shot on goal to score on Fleury. That's what's so annoying about him. You just have to get it behind. You have to get the puck behind the goal line, and it seems like there's a 50% chance that he's going to score it on himself.
I have news for you. If the Penguins, I still can't bring myself, and this may be a huge mistake. Maybe I should be getting more worried about this series. I can't bring myself to worry about it. I just don't think the Islanders in 7 games can compete with us. But with that kind of goaltending, we're not winning anything. And I have news for you. If the Penguins don't advance to at least the conference championship game, it's not Bylsma's job that's on the line. It's not Shiro's. It's not anybody else's. It's Fleury's. He's got 2 more years after this one at $5 million a year. We don't need to be paying him $5 million a year with a cap going down to $64 million next year if he's not going to perform. And I can guarantee you, if he plays this way for the remainder of the playoffs, he's gone this summer. You heard it here first. I guarantee it.
Yeah, I agree with that. But it's like I'm frustrated because you know the response of Fleury defenders is going to be like, well, he just had a shutout in game 1. He just had a bad game. It's okay. It's okay. And, like, that's fine in an 82-game season, but this is a 7-game sample size. You throw away a game like this where you're up 3-1 and then you give up 3 terrible goals, then you're not the goalie that you pretend to be.
Yeah, there's only one criteria here. It's not whether you can perform in outstanding fashion at a given time. We know that he can do that. He has done that. He's won a Stanley Cup. The issue is we have absolutely no idea from game to game what's going to happen with him.
Right, and I think that's
easily melt down, or he could be good.
And that's a really difficult thing for the team to deal with. And I'm not saying it excuses any of the stuff they were doing in their own zone because the own zone play was horrible, and we'll get to that. But it's like I don't know how anybody can go into Game 3 knowing what to expect at all from Fleury. Like, I have no idea if they're going to score on their first shot from from center ice, if it's just going to be coming out from behind the net, if it's going to be a wrist shot over his shoulder, or if he's going to have a shutout. Like, he is not consistent at all. And if all he had to do is keep the other team to 2 or 3 goals every single game, the Pens can probably win the Stanley Cup. He cannot shit pucks out into his own net, like that come off the glass behind the net. It's like I'm so frustrated by it. Like, it drives me crazy.
We've seen it too many times. We've seen it too many times in playoff games.
Yes, since the first 2 games in Detroit, he's had this knack for just scoring pucks on himself. Yeah. And it's just awful. I mean, it's just
infuriating.
Awful.
It's infuriating.
And everybody who is like a doubter of Fleury, you can't take his cup away. I know that, but you can really reassess what he is as a goalie based on his performance in everything other than the 2009 playoff run.
I agree. It's maddening, and you're going to enjoy this segue. It's also maddening to see Chris Letang going from being clearly the best player on the ice in Game 1 to a poor performance in Game 2.
Absolutely. A really embarrassing performance from him tonight. And I don't know. It wasn't just him, though. It was like every Penguin would just, as soon as they got the puck in their own zone, they just kind of slapped it straight against the boards. There was no attempt to get it out of the zone. We must have had 50 turnovers between the face-off dot in our own zone and the blue line. It was really, really bad. And I thought Letang was the worst. I thought Paul Martin played a terrible game. He had a giveaway. It was right in the early third period after the Penguins didn't score on that 30-second carryover power play. And he had some play where he just, like, he could have gotten the puck and skated out of the zone. He just shoots it horizontally across the ice into the boards. And the Islanders then pressure for, like, the next 45 seconds. I don't know. Where does that come from? Like, they're just as inconsistent as Fleury in their own zone.
Terrible. Martin Letang, terrible. Derek Englund, I've heard people say over the last couple of years, Englund should play in the playoffs. He's a bruiser. Why doesn't he play? This is why he doesn't play.
He doesn't belong.
He sucks.
He doesn't belong.
He shouldn't be out there. It was just a horrible performance by the defense. We missed Brooks Orpik. There's no question about that. I don't know. I don't want to overplay the psychological aspect of this, but it is fairly predictable when you dominate a team in the fashion that we did in the first game and in the first period, that there's going to be an opening for the opposition to come at you. You're going to relax a little bit. It's just human nature. We know that. But it's not an excuse for this team. This team has been here before. This was a repeat of what we saw against Philadelphia when they get a lead and they just completely relax. They just can't do that. I mean, it's just inexcusable.
Right. I understand the relaxing for the next 10 minutes after you get a 3-1 lead, and it seems like it's coming so easy, and it seems like Sid's going to have 8 goals. But then once you turn it off, like, it doesn't seem like we're able to turn it back on again. It's like you kept waiting for the Pens to be like, all right, now the Islanders have 27 shots and we're 20 minutes into the game. Now they have 34 shots. It's like, all right, eventually the Pens are going to turn it around, and they just didn't. They never flipped the switch back on.
The key to the game for me was the 4-minute power play at the end of the second when we were totally lackadaisical. We got away from what was so effective in Game 1 and really the last couple of weeks of the season, and that is just setting Iginla up to just power the puck at the net. And it opens up everything else. For whatever reason, that didn't happen tonight. And I can't figure out why.
Although I don't think that was that bad of a power play. I mean, Sid had a couple really great chances.
He did, but why get away from the focus on Iginla? I mean, everybody's gravitating to Sid and Gino. Guy's going to be wide open for one-timers for 4 minutes straight. You just got to keep feeding him. I mean, it's so simple. You maybe they feel like there are other plays to be made, but I don't think there's anything else that you need to do. It just opens up a lot.
It looked like Malkin was kind of out of place. Like, he was just kind of looping around in circles around the whole power play. But when he would get into Iginla's space, Iginla wouldn't know what to do and would kind of just drift off into another place.
Yeah, Gino had a really dominant first period, maybe his best period of the year. And for whatever reason, the last two periods, he seemed a little out of sorts. He and Iginla didn't seem to be on the same page. There were a lot of drop passes that didn't quite connect. I'm not sure what was going on.
Did you sense that it looked like – I'm looking it up right now, but I thought that it was pretty apparent that Bilesma cut Bo Bennett's ice time. Bo Bennett only had 7 minutes and 20 seconds. That doesn't make sense to me. Like, what did he do to lose the ice time?
He was either benched, in which case I can't really explain it. He might have had a bad shift in the first period. I don't remember.
All right, but so what? I mean, he was on the ice when we scored at the beginning of the game. Like,
yeah, but I don't know that he was benched because I know that at one point he took a puck off the leg. I'm not sure if he was hurt. I don't know what happened there.
He was back in the game. He was back on the last shift when we pulled the goalie.
He was. But I don't know if it was an injury or if he was benched. Just don't know.
Crosby played 23-20 tonight.
Yeah, I mean he was.
I thought this was one of Dupuis' worst games. He was garbage in the own zone. I thought really not a good performance from him. What did you make of Crosby's performance? He had 2 goals, but I thought he wasn't as. I mean, he certainly wasn't at the level he was a month ago, which is to be expected. But
of course, I mean this is not just coming back after a month off. It's coming back into a playoff game, which is a whole different speed, and that's something that maybe we're underrating a little bit. I don't want to hedge in my criticisms at all, but we have been talking about our concern about an adjustment period when Sid comes back, and that was sort of glossed over by the fact that we got those goals in the first, but I still think the adjustment period that we were worried about is actually taking place because, the power play, for example, was totally different tonight. I know Sid got those chances, but we got away from focusing on setting up Iginla for one-timers. And Malkin with Iginla, they just weren't clicking.
Right, and that's where
in the second and third period.
That's where the Neal injury comes into play because if you had Neal still, then you have like at least some comfort level with that in second line that's played together a lot. You could put, you have the growing pains with Crosby, Iginla, and Dupuis, but then you have Malkin, Kunitz, and Neal to play together.
Right.
So, I don't know. I just pulled up the Corsi's, and I mean, I'm not into the Corsi's and stuff, but like you can see that there's a huge difference. Like -25, the Penguins were. But I mean, it's not like you need the Corsi to tell you that. We could tell you that they played like garbage.
Yeah, and it's a stupid stat. I mean, we were winning 3-1 after one. It looked like even though the Islanders, I probably had more zone time and had some great chances, it still had the feeling of a game we could easily win like 6-2. And the Corsi was incredibly lopsided in the Islanders' favor in that first period. It's just a useless stat to me.
Right.
It doesn't take into account reality, and I have no use for it.
What do you think of Brandon Sutter? I mean, did you notice him at any moment tonight at all?
Right after I tweeted that it would be nice for him to make an appearance, he had like a little rush, but like where I saw that he actually had the puck. But aside from that, he didn't do anything. He's been a big disappointment.
He's a huge bystander for way, way too long. And this is what we talked about sort of towards the end of the regular season. Like, do you think that more of his minutes should go to UC Jokinen? I mean, Sutter only played 13 minutes tonight. Like, think about as much as we love this team compared to last year's team, Jordan Staal was a 20-minute-a-night player. Right. Now you have his replacement, and I know we were able to use the assets to get some of these other guys, but the direct replacement for Jordan Staal can't even play more than 13 minutes in a playoff game, and he's supposed to be our shutdown guy going against the top line of another team.
Yeah, that's one.
It's embarrassing.
Issue. That's one issue with this team that is less important because we have so many scoring lines. Really, every line has the potential to score, but we don't have a shutdown guy. We just don't have that. But what we do have, instead of Stahl and Joe Vitale, we've got Jokinen and Sutter. So arguably that averages out.
But what evidence is there that Sutter's really even that good?
There's very little. I mean, he's had these shining moments, these flashes this year. But other than that, he's very quiet. I think that, I have no problem with giving Jokinen more ice time. Right now, we're a little thin with Neal out, with Bennett being benched. But with a full lineup, I would like to see Sutter play less if he's just going to be a non-factor. And that line, generally, the Sutter, Cook, and Morrow line needs to be better. They played a little bit better in the third period, but as you pointed out after last game, they're not tilting the ice. They're not pinning the Islanders into their zone enough.
No, they really don't. I would advocate like a subtle change. I just don't see Sutter deserving third line ice time. He doesn't do anything.
Right.
Like he just doesn't do anything. I mean, are we still thinking he's good because Bob McKenzie tweeted that the Pens fans would like him when we traded for him last July? That's what I'm wondering. What other evidence is there that he's good other than that?
There's very little evidence. He's had those flashes. He had some big goals in the regular season. Let's see him do it in the playoffs. Hey, let's see him be noticeable for more than 1 minute of the game.
That's a start. That would certainly be a start. Let's end on the tough question. Any consideration of going to Vokun in Game 3?
That certainly is the question. You don't want to panic, but I think this team has shown in the regular season that they respond really well to that kind of a goalie change to Vokun. And the few times that it happened during the season, if Fleury struggled, they went to Vokun. They seem to rally around Vokun. And I wouldn't hesitate. If Fleury gives up a goal or two along the lines of what we saw tonight off the backboards, just a long-range wrister over the shoulder, I'd pull him. I mean, that's why we got Thomas Vokun. So what happened against Philly last season in the playoffs doesn't happen again. So this is the moment. There's no second chance.
Right, I agree. I think you just give him. He just is on a really, really short leash going into Game 3.
Absolutely. Look, this is what we planned for in essence.
Right.
We didn't get Vokun because we're not going to play him if Fleury melts down. It's what's going to happen. And I don't think anybody will bat an eyelash when it does.
Let me give some shout out love to our people who are listening right now on Twitter. We have 3 people who mentioned that they're listening right now. Randy says, quick recap, Isles wanted it more, way more. I can't disagree with that. I think Randy's right on with that analysis. Every loose puck in our zone, the Islanders got to.
As usual, Randy.
Right on point. Alicia's super excited about GTOG Radio right now, as to be expected. And then Eric, who was on the podcast this week, said he's listening to us licking our wounds. Lucky bounces equals Islanders take 1. And I would suggest that those were not lucky bounces. I mean, if you're an Islanders fan and haven't watched Fleury in the playoffs much the last few years, those might come across like lucky bounces because you don't score those on any other team.
Right. But that's what we call Fleury bounces.
Right. When you play against Fleury in the playoff, that's not a lucky bounce. That's just a good shot off the backboards. You're better off taking a slap shot as hard as you can and missing the net on purpose than you are taking a slap shot at Fleury at this point.
Yeah, enjoy this moment, Eric. You deserve it, my friend. All right. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll be back. What are we going to do, Sunday afternoon after the game?
Yeah, we'll go Sunday afternoon. GTOG Radio, we got unlimited space. We're ready to go.
All right. Terrific. Until then, GTOG.